So here's the hidden secret about formularies. All the information you need to know is actually there. You just have to know where to find it. So to answer your question, let's start with abbreviations. So abbreviations tell us what's required. There are some abbreviations that are very important for you to know, some of which you may even recognize. The reason it is so important is because if your medication has an abbreviation next to it, it will mean you may have a challenging time accessing your medication, or you may have to wait more time before you can pick up the medication at the pharmacy or obtain it. So some examples of the abbreviations, as you'll see in the presentation, are age limits, quantity limits, specialty medications, which we mentioned, and onward. So your formulary will have an appendix as to what these abbreviations mean, but they're really important to observe.
Right. You mentioned that there are a wide variety of abbreviations inside these formularies. Are there any more important abbreviations than others to keep in mind, specifically for someone with a chronic disease?
Yes. So there are many abbreviations that we can discuss, but just be mindful, each patient is different. So one abbreviation may be more important or impact a patient differently than the next. However, what I want to do today is go over 3 common abbreviations to keep an eye out for. Usually noted as PA and ST and SP as in Paul. PA often stands for prior authorization, which means your plan specifies that a prior authorization is required for your medications. Your healthcare provider will have to send a request to the insurance company for approval before you can pick it up at the pharmacy. And ST, another abbreviation, which stands for step therapy typically, or otherwise known as bill first, describes an insurance company practice that requires the least expensive drug to be prescribed to a patient first, even if a patient's physician believes a different therapy is a better treatment option. So SP, the third one I want to talk about, is specialty medication, which means that some of these medications can only be filled by a specialty pharmacy, such as a Walgreens specialty pharmacy or others like them. It's important to know which medications may require special handling to ensure there are no further delays in accessing these medications.
Great. I'm going to give you a hypothetical on these terms in order to understand them a bit better. So let's say that I spoke to my physician and the medication that we have decided I should be on has a PA or prior authorization next to it on my formulary. What does it mean to me?
Great. I love real world examples. I think the first thing for us to understand is that it means to you that it is going to require an extra step before you receive the medication. So we know that. We want to plan for that. Your physician understands that there are steps that need to be taken beforehand, but you yourself have to be informed so that you can ensure that there are no further delays. For instance, as in, let's go over a real world example. I just spoke to a patient advocate who found out that their treatment required a PA, which is, as we've learned, a prior authorization, and she had to call her doctor's office. The insurance company then had to keep calling, and the patient had to be involved along through the process. So the only reason the prior authorization actually went through was that the patient read the information from their formulary, they knew this extra step was required, and they began to involve themselves in the process.
That's great. And she found this out through her formulary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you just mentioned, it's important to be informed in order to prevent delays in your treatment. And it seems like it is also very important to be persistent. Um, so Jessica, what are the steps that you recommend that a patient takes in a case like this?
I recommend patients check their formulary, as we've been talking about. Talk to your doctor to make sure that all the paperwork is submitted. And as you mentioned before, persistence is key.
Right. Okay. So moving on to the second abbreviation you mentioned, what can you tell us about step therapy or, as you said, fail first?
Right. As mentioned before, step therapy requires that a drug preferred by the insurance company to be given to a patient first, even if a patient's physician believes a different therapy is medically in the best interest of the patient. So meaning a patient must try and fail before their insurance company will pay for the medication that was originally prescribed by the patient's physician.